Hey everyone, my name is Sean Cecil from the Oculus Institute, and today is our summary video to wrap up on the 4 schools of internal work. Okay, so we've gone through, 4 different schools of internal work that operate on very different premises, right? We went through the psychotherapy model, right, which operates on, various tools ranging from, talking to trauma psychology to somatic therapy, but generally rely on, you come in multiple sessions, some practitioner, guides you, and then you get a result. We talked about the positive psychology model, which is basically like, hey, listen, if it feels good, go to it, right? Which, has some pluses and some minuses depending on which toolbox you use. We talked about the NLP model that's been popularized by Tony Robbins, and some of the drawbacks of when, dealing with disempowering beliefs if you're dealing with stuff that maybe is true, as well as, some of the strengths and some of the real power that you can get from doing beliefs and values work if it's based on the right foundation, right? As well as meta programs and some other, cool little tactics there. And then we've talked about the esoteric work, which makes all that value and belief work so much more powerful and can enhance so many other areas of life and can break through so many things where everything else fails, right? As I said, I had a client who spent 30 years in therapy and then 6 months with me doing esoteric work, solved all those problems, right? Now, the question is, when do you use each school? So some people might be like, hey, listen, it sounds like you're just trying to promote the esoteric work. And listen, don't get me wrong, I believe it's super powerful, but it's not the only thing. So if you look at these 4 schools, I use tools from every single one of these 4 schools with my clients, right? For the psychotherapy stuff, the main stuff that I use is trauma psychology, right? One of the reasons people tolerate toxic work environments is because they grew up in toxic home environments. And so in many cases, there's emotional trauma there to be dealt with. I was very, very, very pro-gratitude and pro-empowerment in the right way when we talked about positive psychology. And so I've incorporated some of that kind of stuff into ritual for my clients to do every morning. It's a motivation and mindset ritual. When it comes to NLP, I was trained by some of Tony Robbins' top people. So I know that there's certain tools there that are really powerful. Like the disc typing is a really advanced form of meta programs that I happen to be very, very, very good at. And it's something that, brings a lot of value to my clients. And then obviously, as I said, the esoteric work I think is totally profound. It is, in my mind, the most powerful toolbox that I have and the most useful and the most life-altering. That said, different people at different points in the journey are going to benefit more from different toolboxes. So I like to use a 5-point scale for where people are internally, right? At the bottom, you have what I call the chaotic mindset, where people struggle to even get through the day, right? You're talking about people who are losing, multiple days per month to, stress, being triggered, etc., where they struggle to be productive on a day-to-day basis. Above that, you have what I call the fragmented mindset. And this is something where people can function, but they can't really stick to longer term projects because something will happen and they'll get derailed. And so they can function on a day-to-day basis. They're not, if something happens, they can get through their day, but as that stuff piles up, it's going to prevent them from potentially going down other tracks of self-improvement. Things will fall off and things will end up on the back burner, etc. The third, if you have 3 points on the scale, you get to what I call the blocked mindset. So the blocked mindset is something where people have success in many areas of life, where they can function, they can do long-term projects and certain things, but there's certain areas of life where they have these challenges that keep coming up, these patterns that they keep repeating, right? And it could be in any arena of their life. It could be multiple arenas of their life tied to some of the same key points. For example, it may be codependency and people-pleasing that shows up in multiple areas of their lives. The 4th level is unified. So this is somebody who is broken through those blocks. They tend to be very into personal development. They tend to be making progress in all areas of their life, some more, some faster, some slower, depending on whatever's more important to them at the time. But they're people who are generally moving forward, right? There may be some things where stuff happens and it can throw them off for a little bit, and then maybe they'll change course and they'll do something else and they'll start moving forward on a different track. But they're definitely always moving forward in the grand scheme of things. They're never really hitting that wall. And then finally, at the top, you have what I call unshakable. Very, very, very small group of people. People who are unshakable are the kinds of people who can make a commitment about what they're going to do 50 years from now and keep it, right? Because they're so in touch with themselves, they're so aligned that they know where their life is going. And, you know, regardless of what happens outside, right, they're just gonna come back to their track. They're gonna come back to who they know they really are, and they're gonna stay on that path. So if you're dealing with, if you're in a chaotic mindset, right, you're at the bottom of the scale, you're probably going to get the most bang for your buck or the most benefit from the psychotherapy model and the positive psychology model. And the reason for this is that, you know, at the very, very, very bottom, talk therapy is really going to work for people who don't really have other human beings who are well adjusted that they can speak with, right? If you look at trauma psychology, generally people who are dealing with emotional trauma are really struggling, right? It tends to have very, very deep effects. If you look at positive psychology, you know, somebody who is in a chaotic mindset, you think of somebody who's, you know, depressed or anxious, somebody who's mentally ill, not in a schizophrenic way, but in a mood disorder way. Those people are going to be struggling with things like gratitude. They're going to be struggling with things like believing in themselves, right? And so those things will have a big impact. Whereas NLP, which is going to be more complicated, is going to be something it takes, you know, it requires a higher level of focus that may be very challenging, and the esoteric work even more so. Now, if you're dealing with somebody who's in a fragmented mindset, right, you're going to be looking for, you know, again, some degree of positive psychology is going to be helpful. They're probably going to be past most of the psychotherapy stuff, except for potentially the trauma psychology, if that's their history, or some of the somatic methods. They're going to be at the level where they can engage with, you know, some NLP tools in a meaningful way. But the esoteric work is still going to be a real challenge. If you're dealing with somebody who's in the blocked mindset, you know, you're dealing with somebody who now has, you know, probably incorporated some basic degree of positive psychology. Going too far down that road isn't really going to serve them, because now you start getting into stuff that's delusional. Again, they're probably not going to be dealing very much with the psychotherapy model, except for some of the trauma psychology and somatic stuff. So somebody who's in the blocked mindset is going to get the most from the NLP type work, especially some of the deeper NLP work around beliefs and values, as well as this is a good time to really start doing the esoteric work, right? Many times the blocks that I've found that are really holding people back require the esoteric work to break through. And you don't really need it earlier to make those advances. It can definitely help, but you don't necessarily need it. But if you get to that point and you're running into those blocks consistently and the other schools aren't working, I found the esoteric work is almost always what breaks that barrier and gets you through to the other side. And then if you're at the point where you're in the unified mindset, you've gotten into personal development, you've probably done a lot of NLP stuff. There might be some new stuff out there for you, but you know, you've probably covered all of this. If you're in the unified mindset and you're looking to go to Unshakable, it's esoteric all the way. And it's going to go into the deeper layers of esoteric. It's going to go past the deconditioning, which in and of itself is, you know, something that very, very, very few people do, and start going into, you know, deeper things like mysticism, deeper things like, you know, what I call practical metaphysics, deeper components of spiritual enlightenment, deeper components of release and surrender, right? But if you're looking to go from that fourth level to that fifth level, esoteric's the only way to go. So if you look at this, right, we now have a comprehensive theory. The lower you are on the scale of internal work, you know, you're going to be looking at more positive psychology and psychotherapy. And as you move up, you're going to kind of leave the psychotherapy model behind, move into NLP, and as you continue to advance, you're going to leave the positive psychology behind, aside from, you know, like a good, decent gratitude, empowerment kind of practice, and move more into the esoteric work. And then ultimately, you're going to leave the NLP behind and go into the deepest reaches of the esoteric work. And if you do that, this is the roadmap to get you from the most stressed out, depressed, struggling place you can be to the most unshakable, surrendered, calm inner peace that you can achieve, right? It's just by using each of these four schools, using the appropriate tools at the appropriate times, keeping what works, discarding what's no longer relevant, and going step by step in that direction. Hey everyone, if you found this video valuable, if you found a new perspective that's going to help you in your career or in your personal development, then I've got one more free gift for you. I've put together a free diagnostic quiz to help you figure out exactly where you are on the path to career freedom and what you need to do next. Just a few short multiple choice questions, and you're going to get a rating of where you stand in terms of your career fulfillment. You know, how is your job affecting you? How much does it align with who you naturally are? With your financial success, and with your internal alignment, your own sense of inner peace, and how that plays out in your life. Additionally, it will also show you which toolboxes are going to help you achieve higher levels in the ratings that were most challenging for you, as well as what next steps you can take to make sure that you gain those skills and you get the rewards. So if you want to go take that quiz, just go to www.oculusinstitute.com/purposequiz. No lines, no spaces, no dashes, just www.oculusinstitute.com/purposequiz. I'm looking forward to seeing your results. I hope you get a lot out of it, and I'm looking forward to helping you take those next steps.